Hello and welcome back to my craft room. Well, I have got yet another new stitching project that I want to get started on this week. Not just a new project, but a new technique that I've never tried before. Now, I hadn't heard of it, but one of my lovely viewers, I think it was Lisa, it's a while back. I'm sorry, I might have remembered you wrong, but I think it was Lisa. Anyway, she left a comment on one of my videos saying you should have a look at Manx Quilting. I think you'd love it. Oh, she was absolutely right. I couldn't believe I'd never heard of it before. So the things that I love about it are kind of similar to what I love about Quilting, and there's kind of similar origins in a way, because it was developed by people who didn't have a lot of money, didn't have access to materials, and it's built around just using every last scrap and reusing every last scrap of the fabrics and other materials that they had on hand. So for anybody that doesn't know, Manx means it comes from the Isle of Man. So the Manx people, Manx cats, you might have heard of, they're the ones with no tails, famously come from the Isle of Man. They developed this has been around for a really long time. They would have, because they're on a separate island, they would have been really hard to get hold of materials and things. So this is all that there is. There's no measuring equipment, there's nothing fancy. You just need needle, thread, scraps of fabric, and they measured everything with their hands, which I think is wonderful. So each quilter would have ended up with a different size square. Each one would have been unique, and that really appeals to me. And in fact, apparently a lot of the time they wouldn't have even had a pair of scissors, because that would be something, poor people couldn't necessarily afford a pair of scissors. That would have been a major thing. So they would use a knife, or they would just rip, and that really appeals to me. Now, I'm not actually using scraps or reclaimed fabrics. I'm going to break into some of those gorgeous pieces that Sue sent me. So Granny Sue, you'll know from our Discord community if you're in there, and I think she's in the Facebook group as well. Yes, she is, but she might not use Granny Sue in there. Do you know, we've got so many Sues, it's really strange. There's one name that comes up over and over and over again. It's Sue. Isn't that funny? Enough of that. Let's have a look. So Sue sent me that amazing bundle. You might have seen me opening a parcel a few weeks back now. A lot of water under the bridge since then. So I've picked out a few of these lovely cotton prints. A lot of these are Liberty fabrics, I believe. And I quite like this kind of pinky, reddy, bit of teal, bit of yellow, kind of quite summery, happy kind of colours. If this goes well, it's going to become part of a present for a friend for her birthday if I can get it done in time. And I think she liked these colours as well. So I'm going to be following a tutorial. It's on a blog by Amy Smart. It's called Diary of a Quilter. I will leave a link to it below, and I'm going to be following along with that. And I thought maybe you would like to watch my journey, maybe join in with me, because this is something that's completely new to me, and I think a lot of you like me will enjoy it. So I'm just going to put these to one side for a minute. So all of the measurements are done with the particular quilter's hand. So the very first base square, it's a foundation piecing method. So it's kind of backing itself as it goes along, which is great. It makes things a lot easier. So I need a backing fabric, and I've just picked this bit of lightweight calico that I happen to have. I think it's one of those free ones I got in that bundle from Contrado. But you could use a bit of old pillowcase or anything like that. Apparently the Manx women would have used bedding and old clothing and all sorts. So as I say, lots of similarities with Kawandi in a way, but a very, very different finished effect. What I'll do is, before I start, I'll just show you a quick glimpse of this blog that I'm looking at, so that you can see what we're aiming at, and then we'll see how well I do. So here we go. That's a completed block. Manx quilt, a block. That's 4 squares put together. I think you call that a block. You can see how lovely that looks. A bit like the American log cabin kind of style, but put together very differently and designed to be able to use big, or reasonably big, straight running stitches. No machine necessary, all hand stitched. Again, that's another similarity with Kawandi, isn't it? I love that you can just use a straight running stitch and do the whole thing by hand. And I love that it's backing itself as it goes along. So there we go. That's what I'm kind of aiming at. Okay, so first thing is that you make a square that is your hand span. So I suppose I'm going from here to here. That's the span of my hand. I'll make a little snip and then I'll tear it. obviously I want it to be square, so and I like the city women who make the kawandi. They wouldn't have been sitting there with an iron plugged in pressing everything, so I'm not going to be doing that either because I'm inherently lazy. So there we go, that's my base square. So it's the span of my hand. It's not hugely accurate, but I mean, where do you measure from, here to here? Or yeah, I think that'll do me. Now I think the next thing we do is to fold this in a particular way, and that gives us the guidelines to stitch to. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is fold it diagonally. All the instructions are on Amy May's blog there, so she'll probably explain it better than me, but I just thought you might like to follow my follow along with me. Oh, well, you know I always love to take you all down a new rabbit hole. Right, I have got a seam roller which I could use, but I'm just going to finger press it. Again, that's something that you know, for the women making kawandi, or for the Manx women, they would have just finger pressed things like that. So there we go, so I've got that first diagonal mark, and now I'm going to fold the other way. Okay, so now I need to make my centre square, my hearth square. And apparently traditionally, like with American log cabin, that centre square would be red. I think I'm going to fit with my colour scheme, I'm going to probably go pink. I'll just have a look in a mo. Oh, I don't know. Oh, what do you think? It's a shame you're not really here because you could tell me. I think it's between those two. I mean, I could just ignore the traditional thing, but I quite like I quite like the idea of it representing the hearth. So nice not to have to fiddle about with rulers or anything, isn't it? And I guess you could just nip it with your teeth, or if they had a knife handy. Okay, so that's my little half square, and that, using the fold lines that I've created there, I'm going to line that up to be as central as I can by eye. Put a little pin. I don't expect they probably would have bothered with pins very much. When I first started doing the kawandi, I did use pins initially, but quickly stopped bothering, so I'm hoping this will be the same. Okay, the width of the surrounding strips are measured from the length of the base of the thumb joint to the bottom of the thumbnail, so this bit. So that's the width of the strips I'm going to use to make the pieces all around. Okay, so to make these grid lines, so I'm going to fold the edge of my foundation square up to meet the edge of the centre half square, like that. Finger press the crease of the fold. Now I'm going to fold it again, and this time I'm going to bring the creased fold line up to meet the edge of the half square and crease it again. So I'm not going like that, I'm going like this. Yeah, this looks much narrower on mine than it does on hers. But yeah, I guess that's what she means when she says, you know, each one's going to be unique to the particular quilter because of the measurements and proportions of your hand. So there we go. I've got my guidelines there. And I've got to repeat that on all four sides. There we go, that was relatively painless. Hopefully you can see there, see my guidelines. It's ingenious, isn't it? Okay, so now I think I'm going to start adding strips next. Okay, I'll get the best way to do this. Okay, it's easiest to hold it like this. Yeah. So it's about... there. Okay, so I'm going to put my first, and you don't need to cut these like that really. I think you can just use a continuous strip and cut it as you go, but it just happens to have worked out perfectly for me. And she's pinned it here, but I think probably I'm not going to even bother about pinning because I just don't think it's going to be necessary. place it on top of the half square, that centre square, right sides together, match the raw edges, keep the knot on the front of my work, and then hand stitch about 1/4 of an inch seam using a running stitch. Okay, easy peasy. Let's take this one step at a time. In all my boxes so far, I'm using this chunkier thread than usual, partly so that you'll be able to see what I'm doing better, but I just quite like using it. There's a bit of a waste really. I guess you would just use your normal, whatever normal sewing thread. But I've got this handy, the colour's perfect, and I like using it. So. Okay, roughly 1/4 of an inch, but I'm not measuring anything. And I'm keeping my knot at the front here. As far as I understand it, none of the stitching is actually going to show in the end. And Amy makes the point that, you know, in the old days, these women would have been sewing by candlelight in the evenings. They wouldn't have been able to do fancy, tiny, neat stitches. So this was, you know, the fact that the stitching wasn't going to show was a real advantage. So 1/4 of an inch before the end of the strip, drop the needle and thread to the back of the foundation block. I should have read ahead, shouldn't I? Okay. Right, next step. So my needle and thread are now at the back. Next step is to fold this up. And I'm going to line up the outside edge with the first crease that I've made. So I've got these 3 creases, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to line up this raw edge with that first crease. It's going to be easier to do when I'm not doing it arm's length for the camera again. Okay, so that's going to help me to keep my strips a uniform size. Right, that's that bit. Pin the strip in place to keep it from slipping out of place before adding the next log. I don't know if I want to bother pinning. Okay, I'll do it this first time, but I don't think I'm going to be using pins all the way through. I tend to be a bit gung-ho about these things. Right, rotate the block 90 degrees. This is all still at the back. And I'm ready to go with my next log. So, which one am I going to do? So I've got a lightish colour there. Let's go for a darker one this time. Let's add some of this teal in, shall we? Yeah. Oh, lots of scissors. Oh, this fabric just feels so lovely. Okay, so I'm going base of my thumb joint to bottom of my thumbnail. Tear it. And I'm not going to cut the strip this time. I'll see if I can cut it as I go along. I think that's what I'm sure you can do that. Okay, so what she's saying here is that she just kept a pile. She made a whole pile of strips ready and kept them by the side, one light, one dark, and she just went dark light by the sound of it, and worry about too much about the dark light thing personally, but if you want to get that traditional kind of log cabin kind of look, you would want to do that. And she said when it came time to add the next strip, she just kind of cut it roughly to size before she started. So I'll do that this time. I've got a feeling I will end up just having however long the strip is and then trimming it after I've stitched. So if that had been a bit too long, once I got to the end, I would trim it then. In fact, I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to do it. Let's get the right side. That's it. So now I'm going to line this one up. I believe there's something different here. You don't start here. You traditionally you feel like you want to start here, don't you? I believe that is not the case. You come back up where you left off. Okay. So yeah, so you can see that you've caught this one here, and then when we come to do a later round, it will catch all of this part here. So yeah. Ingenious. Right, okay. I don't think I'm going to be using pins. I just don't think I'm going to need to. Right, so I'm going to stop about 1/4 of an inch before the end of that. Before the end of this strip again, and come and take it out the back. like I did before, and now I'm going to trim this strip. And then I'm going to fold it up so that this raw edge meets that first crease line again, like I did before. I'll move that pin to here, but I don't really feel I'm going to need it. And I'm ready for my next strip. Right, I'm going to stop filming and do these next 2 strips because they'll be just the same, and then I'll come back when it's time to start the next round because that might be slightly different. Okay, so it all seems very straightforward. So you can see I'm ending up with these kind of tucks. You know, you get this sort of pleat effect. None of the stitching that you've done shows, so if your stitching isn't perfect, it really doesn't matter. And you just now turn 90 degrees again and repeat the process and just keep going. If you forget which one you're supposed to be doing, apparently it's the same as with log cabin, you always add where the shortest one is. So this is the shortest one, so I mean I know where I'd got to, so I know I'm going here next, but if I'd forgotten I would look for where that shortest piece is, and it's this one, and that's where I'm going to add the next piece. So it's really very straightforward. I'm not doing the whole dark light worrying about where darks and lights, so I'm just sort of, I'm going with the colours for me, because that's just, the colour is the thing that matters more to me, I think. And I'm definitely finding that you can just, when you're ready for another strip, you don't need to have the strips cut to size or anything, just it could be as long as you like. Just going to cut myself a new strip. So it's base of my thumb up to base of my thumbnail. So that's the size of my strips. I'm not cutting this to size at this stage at all. This is where I'm going to be adding my new one. I'm going to line up my raw edges. I'm not bothering to pin. I'd left my needle and thread at the back, and so I'm not coming up here. I'm starting again where I left off. And I'm going to stitch my 1/4 of an inch of running stitches all along here. Just make sure that is all lined up. It's easier if you can get your head over it, because what I want to be lining up with is that pink, not these. I've cut them a little bit long, so I want to be lining up with that pink. There we are, that's it. I think I'm just far too lazy to pin. Coming near to the end, and I'm just going to take my needle to the back about 1/4 of an inch away from the end. Leave the needle and thread there and cut this off. At this stage I just find that's easier than cutting it beforehand, and I think probably less wasteful, because now I can use that piece again. And then this time I'm going to line my raw edge up with the next fold line, so I'm going to be going up to there. Finger press it, so you can see how that's going to start growing really very quickly. You aren't going to see the stitching that's on the back, because they're going to end up backing it with something, I guess. I hadn't thought that far ahead yet. What I'm hoping to do is to make this into a little bag to put a present for a friend in, so I will probably put the 4 blocks together and then line them with something to create a bag. So yeah, I think she'll really like this, because she'll appreciate these fabrics as much as I do. So yeah, really enjoying that. I'm going to carry on and finish the rest of this square and come back and show you. Right, I've finished my first block. It didn't really take very long at all, so it looks on the back. And apparently traditionally you wouldn't then, that's it, that would be your backing. So Amy on her blog shows you how to put the blocks together, and you actually sort of turn your backing back out of the way, stitch the blocks together, right sides together, and then bring this back in and tuck it under a sort of hand finish it on the back. So actually I might try doing that, just out of curiosity. I think I will still want to interline it if I turn it into a bag, so that it's sort of more usable. I'll see how that goes. now I've done this once, it's not taking me too long, so I wouldn't be too upset to unpick it either, and I've got a feeling, and it wouldn't be difficult because I would just undo these one at a time, take the stitching out, because now I said I didn't mind about the dark and light and stuff, but now I'm looking at it completed, I think I do mind about the dark and light. So what Amy suggests you do is have a pile of light strips, a pile of dark strips, and then these two edges would be light, these two edges would be dark. And I had a look at some other sort of examples, and sometimes they're just all the same kind of colours around the outside, like all different kind of blue patterns, say, with the red in the middle for the hearth square. Or I could do like, these would be blue, these would be pink. So I've got a feeling I could end up unpicking this and starting it again and just look on this as a practice piece, because all of these strips will still be perfectly usable. I won't be wasting anything, and this has just been a really good practice. And it's really only taken me just over an hour. Almost incredible. Feels really nice. And as an actual quilt, it would just give you sort of light coverage, kind of similar to Kawundi, really. Love that. Definitely like to become a little bit of an obsession for a while. What do you think? Have you ever come across Manx quilting before? It was all new to me. Have you ever tried it? If you've got any tips, feel free to share them. I love this. I'm really, really happy to find it. Thank you very much to Lisa, who suggested it to me in the first place. I think in the same way as I love Kawundi. So it's you can reuse scraps and old clothing or bedding or whatever. You don't need any fancy tools. You literally just need a needle and thread, and a pair of scissors. They probably did sometimes manage without scissors, but these days most of us got scissors, eh? Nothing, no fancy measuring, nothing like that. It's all hand stitching. I guess you could do it with a machine, but it's just so quick and easy to hand sew, and I love a bit of hand sewing, don't we all? Really very, very excited to find this new to me technique. So thank you all for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope some of you might feel inspired to give this a go. I will be back in a few days to show you how I'm getting on. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you again really soon. Bye.